non-European troops really just a liability? How important were civilian porters to the VPA's logistical system? What were its plans for each phase of the siege? Did it win simply by using superior numbers and firepower to swamp the defenders? This book aims to answer these and other unresolved questions about Dien Bien Phu by presenting the first account of the siege that accurately depicts both sides' plans and combat operations. It does so by drawing upon novel discoveries in French archives, recent interviews with veterans, and a wealth of new Vietnamese publications and online sources that have become available since the siege's 50th anniversary in 2004. We hope that this book will shed light on many aspects of the story that were previously obscure or completely unknown, and allow listeners to understand the truth behind many of the myths that have been propagated over the decades. Chapter 1. The Road to Dien Bien Phu. Dien Bien Phu is a remote valley hidden amidst the jagged mountains of northwestern Vietnam, which, according to the creation myth of the local Thai mountain peoples, was the legendary land of Muang Ten, heaven, where the progenitors of humanity descended from heaven and were taught the arts of civilization by Kun Baram, son of the king of the gods. The decisive battle of the First Indochina War, 1946-54, was fought in this Eden. After a 56-day siege by 50,000 Vietnamese People's Army, VPA, troops, the entire French-led garrison of 15,000 surrendered by May 8, 1954. This defeat toppled the French government, forcing its successor to seek a negotiated end to the conflict at a conference in Geneva, which took up the issue of Indochina on the same day that the last French troops laid down their arms. The Geneva Accords, signed on July 21, 1954, placed the northern half of Vietnam under the control of the Communist Democratic Republic of Vietnam, DRVN, while the State of Vietnam government, created by France in 1949, governed the southern half. This awkward compromise planted the seeds of a second Indochina War because 1956 elections that were supposed to establish a single government for the entire nation never took place. One can therefore trace a direct chain of causality linking the French defeat at Dien Bien Phu to the United States' own disastrous adventure in Vietnam. Twilight of Empire. The origins of the First Indochina War, in turn, can be traced to France's 1940 defeat by Nazi Germany. Denied support from the conquered homeland, the French colonies in Southeast Asia were invaded by Imperial Japan in September 1940. After a brief resistance, the colonial government, which remained loyal to the collaborationist Vichy regime, agreed to allow the Japanese to establish military bases in Vietnam. Over time, the number of Japanese troops and bases expanded, and during the latter half of 1941, all of Vietnam effectively came under Japanese military occupation, though the French colonial administration and army remained in place. This uneasy modus vivendi survived until 1945, when the French, realizing that Japan was doomed, conspired to switch sides and throw in their lot with the Allies. The Japanese preempted them by launching a coup d'etat in March 1945 that overthrew French rule and in turn the colonial army. A political vacuum thus emerged when Japan announced its intention to surrender in August 1945. This was filled by the communist-dominated Vietnam Doc Lap Dong Minh Hoi, Vietnam Independence League, better known as the Viet Minh, which seized power on August 15th, while the Japanese stood aside and the French languished in internment camps. On September 2nd, Viet Minh leader Ho Chi Minh, who had been agitating for independence since 1919, established the DRVN and launched a bloody purge of non-communist politicians to ensure that no domestic challenge to his regime could emerge. But the French Far Eastern Expeditionary Corps, Corps Expéditionnaire Français en Extrême-Orient, or CEFEO, was already headed to Indochina to restore colonial rule. Fearing the consequences of open warfare, Ho permitted French troops back into the country and agreed to negotiate Vietnam's autonomy within the French Empire. Yet the negotiations stalled on the question of how much power the French would surrender, and foundered entirely after the High Commissioner for Indochina, Admiral Georges Thierry d'Angenlieu, established an autonomous republic of Cochin China, in direct violation of an earlier agreement that had